Okay, hello. I am live and we'll just see how this works out. Okay, right, okay. Try and position the monitor just right. I'm in my hotel room at the moment, so that's trying to get the best possible view so it's only my face, ideally. Okay. I just got one viewer momentarily looking at me there. By the look of it, that zero changed to a one. Now it's back to a zero. So maybe one of my 6 current subscribers just checked out the stream and then wasn't interested. But it's all good. It's all good while I'm still learning what to do on YouTube and how to run a YouTube channel properly. That's all good. I'm happy. Bearing in mind that obviously people will be able to come back and watch this archived stream in the future. That's the idea. So this is all fun learning experience in public. Is all good. So yeah, today I am thinking about making a live stream about my thoughts on the current F1 season 2023, how it's been going so far, and just planning to share my thoughts a little bit on it. So you can see one of my t-shirts in the background behind me hanging up. That's so I'm back in the travel lodge for now, aka home. That's my place where I feel happiest easily. So I'm there for the time being. I used to break from college, so that's all good. And yeah, okay. Okay, so I'll close this one. I'm live again. And can we add a little emoji on this one? Search emojis. See what. Put a few laugh emojis. Okay. So this will probably be quite a noisy live stream. I'm aware that the quality is not going to be anything like as good on the playback or on the broadcast as it appears to me now, because I using the Wi-Fi from my phone, which is a Wi-Fi hotspot, my current Wi-Fi hotspot, so my own personal Wi-Fi, and that's the connection that I'm using to broadcast the stream on. So it's going to lag a lot. It's going to be grainy probably most of the time, and the quality is not going to be great, but that's what I use to make my live streams at the moment. So hopefully that'll change in the future at some point. But that's all good. So yeah. Okay. So now I am going to be working on getting myself my first coffee. This is what I call Lion's Coffee Break. This series of live streams I've decided to call Lion's Coffee Break. So it wouldn't be much of a coffee break without coffee. So just need to unplug this and get the coffee set up. The coffee making ability. My hotel room kettle. So that is probably going to be, this is going to be a really chaotic live stream because it's not going to be the best quality. I've got the window open, so we've got traffic noises and bird noises are going to be coming in from time to time. There's going to be doors slamming in the hotel and things like that as well. So it's going to be a little bit crazy. And my phones are going to get notifications from time to time. That's quite loud, actually, my Nokia phone. I've had this phone for maybe a couple of months now. It's still quite new. So maybe should have put that one on silent, possibly. And then once I've made my coffee and had an opportunity to think a little bit with the coffee, it's woken me up and given me some endorphins. I managed to switch the kettle off by accident. This certainly is going to be a chaotic stream. Best hotel coffee. I love it. So, yes. Put the kettle on, and that is my plan to make coffee on a live stream for the first time is underway. Making personal history. Aren't I exciting? Okay. So yeah. Kettle is quite loud, so you won't probably stream back. Probably won't hear my voice much over the kettle. It is currently the noisiest part of the boiling, so it's kind of that point where kettles go through a phase of making quite a lot of noise, and then as it gets nearer to boiling, they just make a more of a bubbling noise, and it dies down before the final clink when it switches off. So boils and switches off like just now. So yeah, decaf coffee. I'm adding decaf to my coffee as well. I don't like decaf coffee, but what I do with this particular type of coffee in hotel rooms, it's since we don't get too much coffee here and it comes out of sachets, I like to use the decaf that we get as part of the tea and coffee set. I like to use the decaf to boost the flavor. So it doesn't think to the actual effect of the coffee, but it boosts the flavor. So that's more or less is speak about coffee, really. So I'm really, and I'm distracting myself a little bit because I'm trying to speak about I'm trying to speak and do something at the same time, and I cannot multitask to save myself. So this is my I'm I'm kind of living the video equivalent at the moment of I remember that when I was a kid I used to pretend to be a radio DJ, and I used to start a tape recording and speak into the tape recorder. And it was and pretend that the tape recording was a radio show. And I used to do anything except actually play music. I used to talk the most random rubbish, and that's what I seem to be doing now on this live stream. That tendency has not left me. Now I'm managing to spill coffee all over the desk while I try to pour coffee into the cup and speak at the same time. This is going well. So this is me on my penultimate coffee sachet. It's going in. And oops, there's one bit just escaped. And one more, a bit more decaf to add some flavor. That is, yes. Yeah. This is 2 more sachets of decaf actually I've got. This is, okay. The brilliance of having no people watching me is that I don't feel bad about recording a completely hopeless live stream like this, basically, in terms of actual meaningful Formula One themed content. I will speak about the Formula One soon. Promise, absolute promise. So, I've got all this stuff. Just put that in the bin. That's me. Okay, boil the kettle again. And Okay. Right. So that's the kettle boiled. Now I can plug my laptop back in. So here we go. Now, getting the milk. So yeah, if it gets too noisy outside, I can always shut the window. So, but at the moment it's giving me nice ventilation, so that's all good. I um, what I tend to do with coffee once I make coffee is wait a few minutes for it to cool down before I add any milk, because that tends to it cools down quicker. It cools down quicker without milk in it, without the fat content of milk, and also it's those few minutes when it's at the hottest is also when it's going to be cooling the fastest. So I tend to wait a few minutes before adding the milk. So then I'll be able to drink it sooner. The coffee will be a drinkable temperature sooner. That's the idea. So yeah. So basically, F1 2023, I think really we're still at such an early stage of the season, with it being 23 races, 23 planned races. I am really excited for how the season might work out. I think we've not seen the true potential of the F1 season in terms of the actual competitiveness of the field being realized yet. So basically, I think that the domination from Red Bull so far is masking how potentially competitive this this season might be. This field might be this season. I think it's we are still at such an early stage of the season that hopefully there can be a lot of twists and turns with there being more races in the season. Obviously, that makes a season where we can have a lot more potential potential excitement as the season continues. A lot more unexpected rain affected races, a lot more unexpected car failures and things like that. Although it's got to be said, Red Bull seem to have got the reliability side of things seems to be very well sorted with Red Bull so far, which isn't a good sign for the championship battle this year, because obviously it adds a lot of interest to the championship battle if you get a quick car which clearly has an advantage, but during the opening races of the season it's very unreliable, like what we had with McLaren, um, like what we had with McLaren in 2000 in 1999, for example, when the obvious fastest car has a lot of reliability issues and takes a few races to for the team to get it working properly. That that allows unexpected unexpected um, shall we say unexpected upsets and unexpected excitement early in the season. Um, Unpredictable results, which are all good. So I I'm really hoping that Red Bull, their domination is not going to be set in stone. Obviously, it's a sign that it's a sign that it's not going to be an exciting championship battle this year. But who knows? I mean, I'd like to think that there's still plenty of potential for upsets and unexpected results, unpredictable results there. So I certainly think that we have potential there for an exciting championship. I think Aston Martin with Fernando Alonso have really been impressive so far. Aston Martin's step forward with this car is really impressive. I think the best step forward by any team since, I would say, it reminds me a little bit of the step forward that BMW Sauber made when they were both in 2007 and in 2008, basically. The way that they managed to jump that team forwards, I think, in terms of competitiveness, it reminds me a little bit of that. That suddenly you have a competitive car which can fight for podiums, where it seemed like it was nowhere the previous season, and suddenly you also have a top driver who can pull all of that together into good results and push the team in the right direction as well. I think that Fernando Alonso has so much ability, and another great thing about Fernando Alonso is that made he's made really such such a great example that F1 drivers don't necessarily have to stop or haven't been, let's say, they haven't they haven't had to they don't have to stop when they get to a certain age, when they get past 40, for example. I think there's been a kind of unwritten rule I noticed, and I didn't like it. There was a like an unwritten rule in Formula One where drivers from kind of the mid 90s onwards, I would say that drivers tended to retire. I noticed that drivers tended to retire from F1 once they got to like 37, 38 years old. There was like an unofficial, an unwritten rule, an unofficial cutoff point where once they got to like 37 years old, they were, they were, it was like they were deemed to be too old to be in F1. And I noticed that quite a lot with, like, for example, after Gerhard Berger retired in 1997 when he was 38. Then after that, we had a number of drivers retiring. I think Jean Alesi retired when he was 37, if I remember right. Then we had, and I'm remembering as I go along more or less, off the top of my head, Olivier Panis retired in 2004 when he was 37 as well. I well, he didn't retire officially, but he became a test and reserve driver for Toyota, and then we didn't. He effectively retired. We didn't hear from him in F1 in as a race driver again. So that was, and then we had trying to remember. For example, David Coulthard retired in 2008 when he was 37. It was, so those are three examples just off the top of my head, basically after Gerhard Berger, which were basically, I thought, not, these drivers still retired when they probably still had years ahead of them, when they still could have been excellent F1 drivers or to the best of their ability as F1 drivers. And I think that I noticed that, so for probably well over a decade, that was the case. And the driver, to be honest, thinking about it, the driver who probably began to change that was Michael Schumacher, actually. This is part of his legacy to F1. I think Michael Schumacher, because he retired in 2006 at the age of 37, and then made a comeback in 2010 at the age of 41 and raced for 3 more seasons. And although some people did think he wasn't the same driver, there was a number of mitigating circumstances, I think, for Michael, why Michael shouldn't have been expected to win races consistently when he came back, because he'd been out of F1 for a very long time by F1 standards. He was one of the longest. He had one of the longest, if not the longest, absence from F1 by a top driver. Really, in that I can think of, he had a very, very long absence from the top 3 seasons, 3 whole seasons. To be out of F1 is a long time, and a cutting edge sport like F1. And I think that for him to come back in 2010 after retiring in 2006 it would have been unrealistic to expect him to come in and start winning again anyway. But also, this coincided, his absence from F1 and the break he took, the break he took coincided with huge changes in the regulations of the sport. So the cars he was driving when he came back in 2010 were very different from the cars that he was driving in 2006 and up to and including 2006. And also, he was coming back with a different team, which wasn't nearly as competitive as the Ferrari team he'd been racing with before. And it was very clear to me that he it would have been unreasonable and unrealistic to expect him to start winning again straight away as he came when he came back, or even within a year or two of coming back, this was because the car wasn't competitive. He was he was coming into a different sport with a different team, so there was lots of different things which people didn't take into account. I think many people didn't take into account. So he actually so basically there was no reason to believe that he was any like a lesser of a driver when he came back in 2010 at the age of 41 than he had been in his 30s when he was winning races and championships for Ferrari. So so that I think that started the ball rolling a little bit with changing people's minds about what the perception is of F1 drivers being able to race and win in F1 over the age of 40. I mean, the last driver to do that was Nigel Mansell in 1994 with Williams at Adelaide. So I can remember being so happy about it, even though I didn't know anything like as much about F1 back then, because I was a huge Nigel Mansell fan. I remember, still vividly remember now, that the reason why I've always been a Ferrari fan deep down as well was because in 1989, when I first started watching F1, Nigel Mansell was driving was driving for Ferrari, and he was always my favorite driver throughout the time he was racing. He was always my favorite driver. So I think that was to see him come back and win again with Williams, especially after the loss of Ayrton Senna, who had become my favorite driver since Nigel Mansell retired, as it turns out. Basically, to see Nigel come back and win again was just amazing, and I didn't know anything like as much about F1 back then as I do now, and obviously it was nowhere near as readily available information about F1 back then. Like, for example, there was no internet back then, and no um, it wasn't nearly as easy to access information about F1. So partly because being the age I was back then, and partly because not having information readily available about it, obviously I didn't know anything like as much. So, but it was clear to me that he'd done something special, and that one of the things I wished could have happened was without meaning to be disrespectful to David Coulthard, was that I I really wish that Nigel Mansell had had a chance to drive for Williams in 1995 alongside Damon Hill instead of David Coulthard, because I didn't have anything against David Coulthard, but he wasn't Nigel Mansell. And I would have loved to have seen Nigel Mansell against Michael Schumacher, both in top cars, because I didn't think that Nigel Mansell had really lost anything since he won his world championship, and it would have been a fascinating battle between those two drivers. I think that Nigel Mansell would have probably generally outperformed Damon Hill, possibly at Williams when they were if they had been teammates in 1995, and I think it would have been that would have been a fascinating dynamic as well. But I think that Nigel Mansell, being such a hard racer and being so quick as well, would have generally had the upper hand over Damon Hill. I think he would have had that. He would have naturally assumed the team leader role, and I think that that would have been fascinating to see him against Michael Schumacher, basically as in fighting for a championship. That's one of the for me it's one of the great what ifs basically, and I love what ifs. I think that what ifs in F1. I know that some people would say that what's the point thinking about what if something had happened or but I think that that's missing the point. I think that it's a very I think it's a fascinating, very tantalizing idea to think about how what might have happened if a certain driver had stayed with a certain team for a few extra seasons, for example, or what, what if a certain accident hadn't happened? What if a certain team hadn't gone bust? All these things are well worth speculating about because it's, I think, what it is. It's wanderlust for the mind and the soul. Certainly for an F1 fan, I think I think it's very important to speak about that as F1 fans. I think it's part of this as part of the story. So, and these are things which I could possibly do videos about in future as well, which I certainly, as and when I find the time to do it, and as and when I find the, as and when I feel like putting videos like that together, I'd love to do some what if videos at some point. That's possible future plans for the channel. But yeah, there's a few plans I have for this F1 channel. To be honest, there's a few things which I could quite easily uh, do videos on. I don't want to, as long as it has a connection with F1. I think I don't really have any. I don't want to pigeonhole anything that I do on this channel. I don't want to restrict it to only reviewing races or only doing like review videos or only doing reaction videos, or I want to do some of everything on this channel. So that's kind of part of my plan for the channel. So yeah, I think that that's something that I'm really keen to check out the possibility of doing in future. So okay, that smells okay. I always smell milk, even long life milk, before I drink it. It's something that I've always done. I think it's an OCD thing, but meh. Excuse me. So, yeah. Okay. And here comes my first coffee. Mm. Ah, okay. Oh, that feels good. Let's. I had a coffee earlier on after breakfast, but I was not really keen on the the coffee that some of the coffee that gets made by the coffee machine downstairs. It sometimes it's good, but sometimes it's not, depending on how well like maintained the coffee machine is. So that's mm. So ironically, I find sometimes that stuff that coffee that comes out of the sachets is better. So yeah, but now I've ended up speaking about coffee again instead of ethylene. That's I hope to get it right at some point eventually. I think it's I'm feeling super I'm feeling super chilled out at the moment because I am just wanting to relax a lot of the time and just not really worry too much about what I say or what I do. I'm just kind of I'm in the process of decompressing at the moment from having I think a tough year at college, not because the studying is particularly difficult or the studying has been fun and I've enjoyed college, but because I've had so much stress going in on the personal side of things, I felt like I've needed to decompress and recharge my batteries an awful lot because it's been such demanding. It's the course hasn't been demanding, but the personal circumstances have, and making the making the course making the course work for myself and passing everything on the course. I've still managed to pass every exam that I've done so far, which has been nice. So, but the coursework side of things has been more difficult. But yeah, so yeah, I have felt like it's been a tiring year from that point of view, and I'm taking every opportunity I can at the moment to just relax while I'm taking a break from it, relax and just chill out and just be as relaxed as I possibly can. So I'm basically yeah, I've been taking an opportunity to relax, I guess, is what I'm saying. Uh but yeah, I'm So now also, yeah, so 2023, I think Red Bull have been dominating. Also, Aston Martin have been awesome, with Fernando Alonso being awesome as well. I think there's a lot of potential for the season to develop positively as well. I think I'm hoping that Fernando Alonso can win races, or at least win one race, to fight back, bounce back after such a horrible, difficult few years that he's had, best part of a decade really, having to having to deal with and fight with uncompetitive cars and going through so much mental torture with that. I think it's been so nice to hear him being positive on the team radio this year, clearly enjoying his personal circumstances, clearly enjoying being with a competitive car and a competitive team again. So I'm hoping that that can snowball, and I'm hoping that he can challenge, he can progressively challenge Red Bull even at some point. Obviously, the there's been speculation this year about cost cap, the cost cap thing, with Red Bull being potentially in breach of the cost cap for the second year in succession. I think there's been speculation as well about what might happen with Red Bull if they are found to be in breach of the cost cap again. I think that if that happened, I think that a good punishment for them, although this would be, I'm being a bit mischievous thinking about this basically. Um, I'm thinking that I'm thinking that a good punishment might be to exclude them from the season, and because then we'd have an amazing battle for the championship and an amazing battle for the rest of the season with Aston Martin and Mercedes and Ferrari being really disappointing. That's another thing that I was meaning to touch on. Ferrari have been so disappointing so far. I think that uh, with Fred Vasseur taking over as boss at Ferrari, I think obviously it's going to take time for him to start making changes, or for him to start having a positive effect after the Mattia Binotto era. I think, but I'm hoping he can do that because it's a shame to see Ferrari continuing to not do well and continuing to have issues. Charles Leclerc has just been so unlucky, being having the technical issue at Bahrain and then being punted off on lap one by Lance Stroll in Melbourne is just a shame for him. I think he's so unlucky, and I'm hoping that can change as well, because that's just um, such such a shame for him. seems that there's just some drivers who are just incredibly unlucky, and Charles so far has been one of those. So I'm hoping he can turn that around, basically. So yeah, Ferrari very disappointing so far. I think it's it's been a horrible start to the season for Ferrari, one way or the other. And I'm hoping that as time goes on, as the season goes on, hopefully that can change. But yeah, I think that a championship without Red Bull this year would just completely transform it. I think everything would be so everything would suddenly become so exciting. We'd have one of the classic, but we'd have the potential for a classic season there, really. And I think that Fernando Alonso would then be favourite to win his third world championship, which would be which would be amazing. Only 17 years after he won his second one. So I'm optimistic that this season can be a good one. Can ultimately be a good one with hidden twists and turns, which can make it much more exciting than it first appeared. Basically, I think it could end up like, for example, the 2008 season and the 2010 season, both started off looking like they could be boring seasons, or at least nothing spectacular. The first few races were not particularly exciting for the championship, but then it built up and built up, and we had amazing climaxes to those seasons eventually. So I'm hoping let's stay with it. Let's stay with it. I think it could be a slow burner. I feel like it could be a slow burner of a season, 2023, and that it's got the potential to get a lot better. Basically, I think that Bahrain, not for the first time, has provided a relatively boring season opener, but then every race so far, and obviously it can't go on like this, it would it would go completely crazy. Uh, and it would become farcical beyond belief within a few races. But the every race so far has been much more chaotic and exciting than the one before. So that's a good omen for this season as well. I think we've had a much closer field as well. It's been more competitive this season. So in the midfield, and it's only been Red Bull's domination, which has made it look like made it seem like a more boring season so far. We have to remember that Max Max has just won in Melbourne, but in Melbourne last year, it looked like Charles was just going to dominate the season. Although Red Bull had shown clear speed, Charles looked like he was just going to dominate. Charles and Ferrari looked like they were going to dominate the whole season, and or might well dominate the whole season. And Max, after he retired in Australia, was completely writing off his own world championship chances. And then within a few races, he was leading easily. He was leading the championship easily, and went on to record a crushingly dominant championship win. So the same could happen in reverse this year. Who knows? So I think it's an exciting there's so much more potential for good things to happen this year. I think that going into the season, I think we have the potential for things to become more and more competitive during the season as well. More teams can catch up, gaps can close, and I think that it can be very exciting, very exciting. Certainly, very exciting second half of the season. Very exciting, even very exciting second quarter of the season. Who knows? And I think that the sprint races are going to be exciting as well. There's a lot of potential for for exciting things to happen with the sprint races. So, including the next one coming up in Azerbaijan. So, and that's another circuit which has very quickly, I'd say, for me, Azerbaijan has found its way into my heart as an F1 fan. I think it's a technically challenging circuit, but also a circuit which is very exciting to watch in F1 in F1 terms as a fan. I think it's one which has got the potential to it's because it's a nice long race. It lasts a long time, so it's very entertaining. You know that you've got a good afternoon of entertainment ahead of you when you're going to watch it. It's got a history of race stoppages and red flags as well. So, ironically, the first race there was amazingly uneventful with Nico Rosberg winning. I got to say, I really enjoyed it because I really enjoyed it anyway because I was a big Nico Rosberg fan at the time, and I really wanted him to win his first championship. So I was very pleased with the result of that race. But yeah, for most fans, I guess it would have been seen as a very, very dull, boring processional one. But now, yeah, most of the races since, like spectacular, exciting things have happened. Certainly in 2017 with the although lots of exciting things happened and crazy things happened during the 2017 Azerbaijan Grand Prix. It's and of course that was the first actual Azerbaijan Grand Prix as opposed to European Grand Prix, which the 2016 one was. So the 2016 Grand Prix at that circuit was. So 2017, the first official Azerbaijan Grand Prix, was just crazy. That was just so many crazy things happened during that race. But the two things which jump out at me were the two Force Indias crashing into each other, Esteban Ocon and Sergio Perez crashing into each other, and also the incident behind the safety car with Lewis Hamilton allegedly brake testing Seb Vettel, and then Sebastian and then Sebastian pulling alongside and crashing into him, which was just unbelievable. As um, as an F1 fan, I couldn't believe he did that. I know that Lewis has always had the potential to the capability to annoy other drivers, to troll his rivals a little bit and wind them up and annoy them, and certainly worked on Seb that time. But that was crazy. Then Lewis's headrest coming loose, and so all that combined to, and then Lance Stroll with the Williams, which was in its last season effectively of half being half decent level of competitiveness after being so strong since 2014. Really, that was 2017 was the last season where they really did anything significant. I'd say, yeah, and yeah, Lance Stroll nearly getting second place and then being drafted by Valtteri Bottas on the final run to the line, and Valtteri getting past him just at the very end of the last lap. So, but Lance still getting third place. So yeah, it was all of that was exciting. Then 2018 with the Red Bulls crashing into each other. That's a famous crash with Max and Daniel Ricciardo. So, and then Valtteri Bottas's puncture right towards the end of the race was unbelievable. So unlucky. He deserved that win. So I mean, yeah, that's basically been 2021 with Max crashing off, and then Lewis as well. Lewis's mess up after the on the second on the standing restart with 3 laps to go. That was an absolute epic fail, that one. But it was great to watch as someone who isn't a Lewis fan and who wanted Max to win the championship that year. I was really pleased at the way that race ended. Not for Max being out of it, but for Lewis failing to capitalize. That was really pleasing for me as someone who is a Max fan and wanted to see an end to the Mercedes domination. So, and I'm aware now that I've done my first live stream, which has been my first video on here, which has been over an hour long. So that's my first. That's a milestone for me. That's hopefully as a channel continues and the channel hopefully grows in future, this will be seen as something not impressive at all by my standards, but at the moment it feels like it really is. So keep it going for a little bit longer and see. I might need to draw the curtains a little bit because I've noticed that the sun is moving around. I've got a west facing hotel window and the sun's moving around. So unless, of course, because there's a lot of clouds around, they're not covering the sun at the moment, there's a lot of clouds. So if the clouds can move over, they'll do that job for me. But I'm aware that the room might be getting a bit too bright. So, yeah, I think that. Coffee. I'm aware that Azerbaijan as well, it's a very technically interesting circuit because it's the circuit it's the circuit on the calendar where the suction created by following another car is going to be the greatest that it's going to be all season, because we've got such a long straight at the end of the lap on the start finish straight. massively long, massively long straight with a few kinks and twists and turns in it, which I find technically fascinating, but also because the air is thickest in Azerbaijan, because with being 30 meters below sea level, it's the place with the thickest air, only the greatest pressure, only slightly. Obviously, it's only fractionally going to be different air pressure, but with something when you're on the limit with um, the way that we speak about in F1, of course, with things being on the limit, and you're you're so close to the limit, you're dealing with fractions all the time. You're dealing with, so every little change in things like drag and air resistance make a difference. So Azerbaijan is going to be the place where, in theory at least, the DRS should be the most powerful, and also the the hole in the air created by a car going down the start finish straight should be at its most powerful as well. So that's really going to be um, a thing which we should be checking out. It'll be well worth checking out, to be honest. Once we once we go there, I think, where this is not very good descriptions what I'm doing, but it's kind of what I find as as an F1 fan who's recently become a YouTuber and who's interested in doing the YouTube F1 thing. It's so much more difficult to put the knowledge that's in your head and the ideas in your head into words, meaningful words which can be spoken to people. It's very, very, very challenging. So I'm well out of my comfort zone here. And hopefully that'll change as I get more experience and I learn to articulate my thoughts better and illustrate them better as I'm doing it. I think that will be a lot easier to that'll become easier over time. But at the moment it's still a very challenging thing to try and do. So I'm seeing that it's yeah, it's a really it's a really challenging. It feels like I'm taking on a challenge. It feels like I've been taking on a challenge. It feels like I'm out of my comfort zone, but I am embracing it and I'm keen to embrace it and I'm keen to go for it as much as I can. Basically, um, I not just thought I'd move my, just thought I'd try hovering the mouse over one of the icons on my live stream video graphic here to see if it would make a difference, to see if it would be responsive, but it wasn't. So there's a useful bit of information. So yeah, I'm aware that with this live stream here, I'm basically here by myself. not speaking to anyone at the moment because I don't have any viewers, so I can be speaking about anything I want. I guess I kind of have been with speaking about coffee and speaking about my college course and stuff like that. Totally non F1 related stuff. So it's really I'm feeling like this is a fun experience anyway. I feel like this is I'm really enjoying. I've got to say I'm really enjoying doing this stuff with the F1 channel. I'm really enjoying this. I'm really enjoying this journey I've started out on. So we'll see what happens. It's it's fun. It's fun. I think it's I'm I'm actually very happy. I'm very comfortable with the fact that I'm doing all this in relative obscurity at the moment because it would feel more weird to me if suddenly I had lots of subs and lots of listeners, like lots of viewers, lots of listeners, lots of subs, and loads of people viewing my live streams, because I would be thinking that, what have I done to deserve this? What have I done to get all this attention? I'm not worthy, So all of this is the fact I'm sitting here and I've got 0 viewers and 0 likes is actually really good. I'm cool. I'm very cool with it. I think I'm very happy to be doing all this in relative obscurity and not being watched or paid any attention by anybody while I'm still teaching myself what to do. It's good. It's all good. I'm coming up on the 1 year anniversary at the end of this month. Well, 29th of this month, I'll be coming up on the 1 year anniversary of the channel being created. And and I am basically coming up on the 6 month anniversary of regularly posting videos. I only posted about 3 videos, or 2 videos and a short. I only posted 2 videos and a short within the first 6 months or so of the channel being up. So of the channel existing. So basically it wasn't till the end of October. It wasn't until late October that I started creating posting up regular race reviews. So I made my debut in the United States Grand Prix of 2022. So that's I've been kind of trying to mentally prepare myself for months before that to start reviewing races, and just hadn't got myself into the right frame of mind at all. I hadn't got myself into the right, I hadn't managed to mentally prepare myself properly for doing that. I think I just didn't have the confidence, basically. So yeah, while I still don't have much confidence, and while I'm still looking to my build up my confidence and build up my ability with videos, I think it's great that I'm in this I'm in this situation where I'm doing all this in more or less complete obscurity. That's all good. That feels good. So I think, yeah, I think that after after Azerbaijan, I think we've got we've got Miami, the next race, if I remember right. I think that's shockingly bad. I should know. I should know these things. It's like I've I've read the season schedule many times. But for some reason I've got to say that I should know this. I've got to say that I'm looking forward to Miami. I love the Miami race. I really enjoyed the inaugural race last year. Really good. Really enjoyed it. I love the races in the Americas. I love the I think because I love the culture in both North America and South America. I love the culture. I love the races. They're I always think that they're on that they're on circuits which I enjoy watching, and I've always loved as well the fact that they're on in the UK. They're on at tea time basically. They're on TV usually in the evening or late afternoon in the case of Brazil, but usually evening. And that's my favorite time of the day. That's the time when I start to feel most awake. I've never been a morning person. That's the time of day when I feel most awake and I feel like I'm coming alive basically. That's my I've always been a night owl. I've always been a night someone who enjoys being kind of more awake. I've felt more awake at night. I enjoy the nighttime. So I always love the races that are in both North and South America. And one race which I'd love to see come back is the Argentinian Grand Prix. I've always loved I've always loved Argentina as a country. I've always been very drawn to Argentina, and I've always found that the Argentinian Grand Prix has always been one of my favorite Grand Prix. I love watching the Argentinian Grand Prix live when it came back for a few years in the 1990s, when it was resurrected for a few years from 1995 to 1998. I really enjoyed that. I actually considered the possibility of doing a listen along live stream for the 1998 Argentinian Grand Prix, since it's the 25th anniversary of that race today. But there seems not to be a full recording of the 1998 Argentinian Grand Prix on anywhere online that I can find, which is annoying. So there's been lots of races which have been uploaded in their entirety on various videos, like various video sites, various websites, but the Argentinian Grand Prix of 1998 seemingly is not one of them, which is really disappointing. But I so I'd love to see the Argentinian Grand Prix come back. Also, partly because it was the first ever F1 race which was held outside Europe back in 1952. I think I just don't remember 1952 or 1953, but it was the first it was the first F1 race which was held outside Europe. So from that point of view, it has a special place in F1 history as well. And I think it's uh, an F1 race which certainly in the last quarter of a century, has been overlooked, the significance of it. I think that when we speak about certain countries, which have a special place in F1 history, which have a special place in the hearts of F1 fans. From a traditional point of view, Argentina has to be right up there, I think, with selected European races. I think it's it's a very special country and a very special race. So it needs to be. I think I'd love to see it return and be more be more acknowledged by the organizations like Liberty Media, for example, who run F1. I think that they've overlooked Argentina a bit too much there. So I think they should be giving more. I would, if I was in their position, I would be giving more thought to resurrecting Argentina than I would be giving thought to creating or protecting races which have joined the calendar more recently in newer countries. In newer countries, in terms of being countries which host F1 races, I would say that's. I think I I think Argentina is a special country for a special. I think Argentina deserves a special place in F1 history and in in the general hierarchy of how F1 races should be considered. But that's obviously that's my view. That's something which I've felt strongly about for a long time. But yeah, I think that I'm looking forward to. I can't wait to see the Miami Grand Prix. Should be good. Spain. I mean, it's usually a boring race. I'll be I'll be completely honest. Um, Spain is usually a boring race, and it's not usually a race which is um, a race which is ex. I mean, to be honest, I'm not against Spain having an F1 race. I'm more than happy to see an F1 race in Spain, but I wish it was a different circuit. I wish it was being held at a different circuit than Barcelona. I think that Barcelona is a circuit is a layout which has never been conducive to good F1 races, and it's never been conducive to it close racing in general. It's just not been. Obviously the long sweeping corners are a challenge for the drivers from the point of view of being a physical challenge. Obviously it's tiring to hold on to the cars for that length of time every lap. In terms of it's something which it's something which is a physical challenge. I can understand that, but it's not it's not um, a place which is good for F1 races. It's not a place which encourages, creates good racing. It's never been. It was the site of what's been well documented as arguably the most boring F1 race ever, which is the 1999 Spanish Grand Prix. And I remember watching that race live, and it was boring. It was incredibly boring. The only thing which made it really the only thing which made it more interesting was Michael Schumacher's charge through his charge, not through the field, but after he managed to get past Jacques Villeneuve in the pits, not on the track, in the pits. He managed to get past Jacques Villeneuve and then went after the McLarens, and he caught them. He caught them up impressively well, impressively quickly, but and that provided maybe a glimmer of hope that he might be able to catch and pass at least one of the McLarens, but never happened, and that was an incredibly. It was an incredibly dull race. It was an incredibly boring race, and that was one of a number of races at the Catalonia circuit which have been boring. And I think it's just never. It's annoyed me a little bit that that circuit has managed to keep its place on the calendar for so long when, in my opinion, some better circuits not been have have not been as well protected or have lost their place. So, and I was watching there because a bumblebee nearly flew in the window, and that wouldn't have been fun. Oh, and it's still there. As might even be audible buzzing noises. Okay, but I think, yeah. I mean, to be honest, we had the brief run of races, relatively brief run, being a better choice to move the Spanish Grand Prix to than Barcelona, because even though it was a much tighter, twistier circuit, which on the face of it might be more boring, the 2012 race at Valencia actually showed the potential that that circuit did have under certain circumstances to produce exciting races, which Barcelona has never done, even though it's been hosting the race for much longer. So probably it's. I really hope that Spain would Spain will be able to get a racing circuit which is better than, much more exciting, and much more potentially much more challenging layout, which has a variety of different corners on it and is just generally more conducive to good racing than Catalonia circuit is. I think that even Jerez was the circuit where the Spanish Grand Prix was being held when I first started watching back in 1989, and I think that even Jerez was produced better races generally than Barcelona has done. So that's a a circuit where I'm hoping it's 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 always one of the racetracks which I look forward to the least in in the calendar as the year as the F1 year goes on. And I think that last year was actually a really nice surprise. The Spanish Grand Prix was actually a really nice surprise. I was watching the Spanish Grand Prix last year with. There was actually another. I won't name drop because I don't think it's because I don't want to embarrass anybody if they end up watching this stream back at some point in future, or to to shamelessly plug anyone. Like name dropping is something that I try not to do generally. But there was another YouTuber who I had a massive amount of respect for. They've recently, for the last year or so, nearly for the last 11 months or so, they haven't actually posted any new content on their channel, which is a shame because their content was absolutely first class in my opinion. But I was watching along the Spanish Grand Prix with this YouTuber, and and as well as with the Sky F1 feed, which I always do. And this was, and I really enjoyed the whole experience. It was a fun race. It was a fun race to watch, and it was easily the Spanish Grand Prix, certainly in recent years, which I've enjoyed the most. And it was the biggest surprise. It was the biggest, like, nicest surprise that I've actually had for a long time as an F1 fan, as an F1 viewer, in terms of how good the race was compared with my expectations of it beforehand. And the F1, I'd say that the Spanish Grand Prix. So hopefully, maybe, who knows? Maybe we can get a rain affected race or a wet dry race in Spain this year. Maybe it might get a more unpredictable race there if that happens. But Spanish Grand Prix is one that we tend to get through, and we tend to grin and bear that one, I think, more as F1 fans being rather than being excited about it. I think. And yeah, I think the next few races, we've got a variety of races at different circuits, which should be fun to watch. And generally between now and the summer break, I know that there's going to be a huge number of races. There's going to be a lot of races between now and August. So it's going to be fun watching those. It's going to be quite a lot of work to make reviews of all of them. As an F1 YouTuber, I think it's going to be really difficult few months. Although it's going to be an intense few months in terms of the amount of work we'll be doing to make and edit new videos all the time, especially when there's races which are double headers or triple headers. We'll be doing quite a lot of work to make all these videos and get them edited and put up online. So it's going to be interesting to see how I cope with that, because last year I did the final few races of last year, and then the opening 3 races of this year so far. So I've done a few races, and I've done races with the odd gap in between them, but I've not done review videos of race after race after race for a prolonged amount of time. So that's gonna take some doing, because as much as I love F1, it's gonna be a drain on my my mental, let's see, it's going to be a test of my, it's going to be a drain on my energy and a test of my staying power to get each video made for each race, which I do want to do because I think that I want to do this properly and not do it by halves. So I want to, now I've gone into the YouTube thing, I want to start doing it to the best of my ability and my knowledge at the time, and do the best job I can with it. So basically, for me, I think it's no question of trying to do a review for every single race, regardless of whatever happens, even if it's only a short 2-minute review or something like that. I'm determined to keep doing every video of every race from now on for the foreseeable future as much as I can, and it's gonna be a journey. It's gonna be an interesting journey. Put it like that. Put it that way. So yeah, I think there's a lot I could speak about regarding the 2023 season. I know that I've not touched on the lower teams, on the teams which are lower in the Constructors' Championship. Shouldn't call them lower teams. So not fair on them really. But I think that it's great to see every team scoring points as well, even though partly that was because of the chaos in the Australian Grand Prix. I think that was really, I think that was a really kind of, that was good to see. It was good to see that so early in the season everybody scored points. That's good. That's a good sign for the season. That's a good sign for how competitive the season is likely to be. I think that it was great to see Oscar Piastri scoring his first points in his home race as well. It was really nice. And that shows how his potential as a driver is beginning to be realized very early on, I'd say. I think that he's such a good driver who's come into F1 in unfortunate circumstances, and I think it's kind of poetic justice in a way that he benefited from the two Alpines being wiped out of the race, and that elevated him 2 places and helped him to score his first points finish, because I think that the situation with him and Alpine claiming that they'd made his career and things like this up to that point, and he'd stabbed them in the back, or words to that effect, was just ridiculous. He saw an opportunity and he went for it, and that's what a new F1 driver who's coming into just coming into F1 should do. It's just he only did the human thing, and he shouldn't be punished or criticized for that. It's just, I think he's a really good. I think he's a great addition to F1, and I think he's an exciting driver to watch in the future, and I hope he's got a really promising, positive career ahead of him. I think Oscar Piastri is great. I think he's a great addition to the F1 grid. So it's fascinating to see how the dynamic between him and Lando might work out as well, because Lando is such with him and Lando in the same team, I think they're drivers who have a lot in common, and I think that they're same kind of age group, although Lando Norris is much more experienced obviously, with having been in F1 since 2019. Now it's basically Um, it's really, it feels a little bit like Lando with Lando Mark II alongside him. It's it's nice. It's nice as a nice driver pairing. I think they've got a lot of potential as drivers. So that's really great. Um, I think that there's another thing which could develop a lot as the season progresses is the rivalry between the Mercedes drivers. I think that I think that Lewis and George have a really strong. There's a potential for a lot of for a pretty strong rivalry to just explode there. I think because there's 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 an really interesting power dynamic between them as well, with George coming in and being so much younger than Lewis and being the driver who the team considered to be the future of Mercedes. So he's going to have their full support. And I think that it's very, I think that it's going to be a different situation where Lewis has a history of not getting on well with teammates who beat him consistently, who are able to beat him consistently, like Fernando Alonso at McLaren, like Nico Rosberg at Mercedes. They're both of those things, both of those driver partnerships developed in an extremely very toxic manner, basically. And I think that the situation with George, if George keeps beating Lewis, I think there's going to be a point where it's Lewis is going to stop being nice about it and is going to start being there's I can see resentment developing there, and I can see kind of anger, like there's anger and negativity developing there. Potentially, I think if George continues to beat Lewis, and what's going to be very interesting is that uh, it'll be it's a new situation for Lewis because it's the first time that he's had a teammate which is much younger than him. Like Valtteri Bottas was about 4 years younger, but he was some more or less the same age as Lewis. And George is much younger. He's from a different generation. He's from the new generation who are coming through, and Lewis doesn't take it well when a teammate frequently beats him before. So there's no reason why he should be any different with George. But George has the support of the team, whereas Fernando didn't at McLaren. It was George. There are parallels here with the situation between George. Let's I'll what I'll say is George is reminding me of what Lewis was like at McLaren in 2007. It's like he is doing to Lewis what Lewis did to Fernando Alonso at McLaren, and it's basically where he's the guy who's come in. He's the guy who's got the support of the team. He's the guy who is kind of like the guy who are the guy who is being who's getting the full support of the team and the full support of he'll be able to rely on the full support of the team if the two drivers fall out, I would say. Because Lewis is as good a driver as he is, Lewis is getting towards the end of his career. Whatever happens, I can't see him I can't see him wanting to stay in F1 for many more years. I can't see him being willing to basically being able to keep up the same motivation, the same intensity that he's been doing for year after year after year with when he was winning these championships. I don't see how he can keep that up, at least not to the same intensity anymore. And he might just feel like it's time to either retire from F1 soon or just take a break for a year or two. So I think that the power dynamic is fundamentally different with George than what it was with for Lewis with his previous teammates who he didn't get on well with. So I think that if this rivalry develops in a toxic manner at Mercedes, then Lewis is gonna have to. It's not gonna end as well for Lewis, I think, as the rivalries with Fernando and with Nico did. Let's put it that way. I I think it's a new experience for him. I don't think he is going to um I I don't think he's going to enjoy this this partnership as being George Russell's teammate. Let's put it that way. I don't think it's things are things are looking like they might not work out well for him in terms of the power in terms of the power dynamic there, in terms of the fact that there's this guy who's beaten him, who's much younger than him, who's bound to keep getting better. And I think I think it's I think it's fascinating. I think it's going to be fascinating to see that play out. Uh, so that's a really interesting. That's a really interesting situation potentially with the Mercedes drivers there, and I think that's going to be interesting to see that play out as the season as potentially as this season progresses. So yeah, I think that this season is really it's a very exciting one. It's a very exciting one for uh to be an F1 fan in many ways. It's it's I think to put it to put it in to put it in to put it to sum it up as well as I can probably at the moment, the way I feel is that this season so far, this 2023 F1 season so far, is I think these first three races have been the calm before the storm. And I think the storm is going to kick off at some point in the next few races, and it's going to be quite possibly in terms of cars becoming more competitive, in terms of unexpected things happening, which cause twists and turns in the championship, in terms of driver rivalries, and so on. I think there's a lot of potential there for exciting things to happen. So this has been the calm before the storm, and I think that the storm is going to be a very exciting and potentially beautiful one. So let's wait and see. Let's see how it works out. So I'd say that is my I'd say that is my my season discussion of 2023 so far done. Probably my live stream, it is, yeah, 1 minute, yeah, 1 minute, 1 hour, 1 hour 51 minutes in. So this is kind of this has been nearly twice as long as my previous longest stream, so that feels good. And this is the kind of length of stream that I'll need to get used to doing if I'm gonna do things like live watch alongs for races and reactions to live races, things like that. So that feels really good. That feels really positive. So okay. So what I'll do now is I'll probably wrap up the live stream now. This has been fun. I've enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to watching the next few F1 races, and hope everyone's enjoying the kind of Easter break in this F1 season. I'm enjoying it. Taking plenty of opportunities to watch recordings of watch videos of old races and catch up, watch reaction videos, stuff like that. It's been a lot of fun. So okay. So hope everyone is enjoying the Easter break and looking forward to the next race. This has been a great live stream. I've been Ed from Last Lap Lion. Hope to do more live streams at some point soon. All the best.